On a quiet evening in a suburban neighborhood, an unthinkable clash unfolded between everyday prejudice and professional composure. The incident began when a black woman, casually dressed after a long day at work, returned to her townhouse community. She parked her government-issued SUV in the designated spot and stepped out, phone in one hand and grocery bag in the other, moving with the ease of someone who belonged. She had lived there for years, though few neighbors truly knew her beyond polite nods. To them, she was simply another resident. What they did not know was that she was a decorated FBI tactical commander, a woman whose career had been forged in some of the most dangerous operations in the country, but none of that mattered when a self-appointed authority, a middle-aged man who styled himself as security for the Homeowners Association, decided she didn't belong. He was not a police officer, nor formally trained, but he relished the little power his role gave him. That night, something about her presence, her skin color, her car, her confidence, ignited suspicion in his mind. Without hesitation, he approached aggressively, demanding identification. She calmly responded, explaining she was a resident, and had no reason to hand over private information to an HOA volunteer. Her refusal struck him as defiance. He raised his voice, stepping closer, puffed up with the arrogance of imagined authority. Then came the moment that shifted everything from confrontation to crisis. The man reached for his hip and drew a firearm. The cold metal of a handgun now, pointed at her chest. For a brief second, time seemed to stretch. She stood perfectly still, her training kicking in, her breathing measured. She knew that any sudden movement could escalate into tragedy. To him, she was just an uncooperative black woman. To her, he was an amateur with a deadly weapon and no understanding of the gravity of what he had just done. She kept her voice low and steady, instructing him to lower the gun, reminding him that brandishing a weapon at an unarmed resident was both illegal and reckless. But he only grew louder, his finger twitching near the trigger. What he could not comprehend was that he was aiming his gun at someone who had led tactical raids, trained federal agents in crisis response, and spent her life diffusing situations. Exactly like this one, except this time, she was the target. She recognized the shallow breathing, the trembling knuckles, the lack of professional stance. He was not in control. His fear was. That fear, combined with unchecked bias, created a lethal mix. Yet she stood her ground, refusing to let panic dictate her next move. Neighbors began to gather, some peeking from windows, others stepping onto porches, murmuring in confusion. Some pulled out phones to record, unsure of what was happening but sensing it was wrong. The man kept shouting about trespassing, about his duty to protect the neighborhood. She never raised her voice. Instead, she slowly revealed her credentials, her FBI badge glinting under the street lamp. The sight of it stunned him, but even then, ego kept him from lowering the weapon immediately. He tried to stammer excuses, claims of protocol, of safety. She didn't flinch. With the commanding tone of someone accustomed to taking control in chaotic moments, she ordered him to drop the gun. Her words carried authority, not volume. At last his hand loosened. The firearm dropped to his side, though his face burned with indignation. The silence that followed was deafening. The neighbors now understood they had witnessed a near disaster. One that could have ended with headlines of another innocent black life stolen under the guise of security. But this time, fate had chosen a woman uniquely equipped to survive it. She collected herself, reported the incident formally, and ensured law enforcement was called. Unlike the HOA volunteer, the responding officers treated her with immediate respect once her identity and credentials were clear. Still, the reality was stark. Had she not been who she was, had she not carried that badge, the night could have ended very differently. Word spread quickly through the community and beyond. The incident became more than a neighborhood scandal. It was a mirror reflecting a broader truth about racial bias, abuse of authority, and the illusion of security in gated communities. Residents debated furiously. Some defended the man, blinded by friendship or prejudice. Others were horrified, acknowledging how close their community came to bloodshed. For her, the tactical commander, it was not just another story of bias, it was personal. Reminder that no amount of training, rank, Her achievement shields Black Americans from suspicion in their own neighborhoods. Yet she did not retreat into anger. Instead, she chose to address the HOA directly, standing before them with the same composure she had shown under the barrel of a gun. She recounted the events in precise detail, not for sympathy, but for accountability. Her message was clear: security is not intimidation, and authority is not a weapon. Her words landed heavily, forcing the board and residents to confront the uncomfortable reality of who they had empowered and what nearly happened. The volunteer was removed, investigations ensued, and conversations about bias, oversight, and community trust rippled through the area. Her colleagues at the Bureau heard the story too, and many expressed both outrage and admiration. Outrage that she had been subjected to such reckless endangerment. Admiration for the calm restraint that prevented tragedy. Private, she wrestled with the haunting what-ifs. What if he had pulled the trigger? What if neighbors hadn't been watching? What if she hadn't had her badge at that exact moment? Those questions lingered, reminders of how fragile safety could be when prejudice dictated perception. But she also recognized the power of survival and testimony. By sharing her story, she hoped to strip away the false comfort many placed in symbols of authority like HOA patrols and expose the urgent need for proper training, accountability, and respect for residents' rights. Her story became one of both warning and resilience, illustrating the razor-thin line between abuse of power and true protection. In the end, she returned to her life of service, her tactical role unchanged, her dedication unwavering. Yet every time she drove through the gates of her community, she carried with her the memory of that gun, that moment, that truth. Even an FBI tactical commander is not immune to being seen as a threat in her own neighborhood. The story stood as a testament not just to her composure and survival, but to the broader fight for justice, dignity, accountability in spaces where prejudice hides behind the mask of security.